Yeah, stay simple. Another good Saturday, but a win is always a great thing, especially on the road in the conference. As people would probably look at it and say, just like I hear in the hallways, and I said when we were done, it wasn't pretty, but I think we found a way to win. And the reality is, we played good. We didn't play great. We didn't play terrible. There was moments when we played really well. There were moments when we did things that were very uncharacteristic of us that you would say aren't very good. So there's a balance there. We gave up too many big plays defensively, which gave them an opportunity to stay in the football game, I think. Obviously penalties on both sides of the football, more so sometimes even the pre-snap penalties offensively, which made it much more difficult on us. But most importantly, and all in all, I think that because of the game and how it went, it challenged us in every phase of the game. So there was an opportunity where offense, they 2 or 3 situations where we had to have, not just a drive, but we had to have points. And in every one of those situations, they went down and scored. We weren't down, but yet the game was within 4 points or whatever it was. They were have-a-have-it situations. Defensively, the same thing. There was probably 4 or 5 times in the game when there were some opportunities there had to have it. We're losing the momentum. It's not slipping away from us, but it's becoming very close, and they're gaining the momentum and things. And we had to have big stops. We got, I think, 2 turnovers in those situations, which were huge for us. And then we had to have it situations with the field goal, with the special teams. I know we had one blocked earlier in the game, but that last field goal that we made was a have-to-have-it situation where the game was becoming really tight. They were within, I think, maybe 5 at the time. Whatever it was, I'm not positive, but it was a had-to-have-it situation. There was some kickoff, or there were had-to-have-it situations, meaning we need you guys to give us an opportunity or to not give them any energy and momentum off of big plays, and they did a great job. Same way punt-wise. So, as you look back at it, you say, it wasn't the prettiest thing. We could have made it a lot maybe easier had we played sharper in a lot of different phases of the game. But I think we were challenged. I think we grew. I think that's the best thing that going on the road can really do for you is no matter what the situation, you got to find a way to continue to battle and be successful. And I think Javon Hicks was probably one of those great examples. There's a guy that gave up a big touchdown pass somewhere earlier in the game and had to respond, and he responded really well, obviously with 2 picks and a turnover, a fumble recovery, but he responded well in all phases. And I think that's where those aren't things you can just in spring ball and in winter conditioning find ways to put guys in situations and put your team in situations where they have to really kind of find a way to gain and generate momentum, get it back when you've lost it. Those are the growing opportunities that you got to be successful in, especially in team sports, but in football more than anything.
Questions?
Was there any one thing they were able to do in Houston's ability to push the ball downfield, or were there different breakdowns?
Well, they did some different things. Obviously, they had a situation at the quarterback position that we might not have been as aware of going into the game. Had some ideas. Just in what we'd seen that he pulled up late in the North Texas game. So they came out, off of a bye week, which you always tend to get some different things with some personnels and different things that made us a little bit, probably put us on our heels a little bit. We really played well until we gave up big plays. And when we gave up big plays, we lost momentum of what we were doing. Probably put a little bit of a shock situation. But I think all in all, their ability, their shots. Yes, it was a, so to speak, wide receiver at quarterback on the big first shot. I think some of the runs that busted out are probably the thing that cause you as much anxiety of than anything. A one-on-one shot like the one on Hicks, it's a one-on-one shot. They've got some really good wide receivers, and it's a really good throw and in good position. We just got to finish and make the play. And if we don't make the play, we got to at least get him down. But I think at times when those balls squirt through and we gave up 3 explosive runs, I think that's where even for me, look at it and say, okay, that's how they were able to move the ball a little bit more down the field and put us in some of those situations.
Was this game a kind of a picture, specifically on kickoffs, kicking the ball short, and then I think you held them to under 18 or right at 18 yards of return? being able to stop them before the 25? I mean, is that a plan, a strategy?
No, no. We'd like to go ahead and kick the thing through the end zone sometimes, but there was a win factor. And when that starts to happen, not only are you going to have, the ball's going to come up shorter, but also it's, puts a little bit in the kicker's head too. Is, okay, now I got to drive it. And all we say is, look, keep the ball in bounds. Give these guys an opportunity to cover. And I think that's where, I say it at all phases of the game, there were some gotta-have-it situations. We gained the momentum in the first, we've all been there before, you lose momentum because you give up a 35-yard kickoff return, and all of a sudden, you're right back to where you were. And those guys, they had to have it. We ran them down there, the ball wasn't going to go to the end zone, the ball ends up on the 8-yard line, and they get off blocks, they finish the play, they make plays, and keep the momentum in our favor, I think, late in that game.
You've got a run of games coming up here against teams that are 500 or worse. You've got a bye week in there. When you've got a portion of the schedule after, it feels like the schedule kind of front-loaded. I know you're preaching one game at a time, but what's the biggest threat to consistency?
No, it's the ability to, no matter what, at the beginning of the season in camp, we talk about it. The only way you have a chance to be a great football team is to continue to grow. I don't care if you're front-loaded, if you're back-loaded, if you're middle-loaded. If you have consistency, you can continue to do the things that you do, regardless of your opponent. You have to play your best football at the end of the year. And we've played some good football. We've had some ups and downs, but we can't. I mean, this is a much better team than I think a lot of people give them credit for. And I know you, as a coach, you stand up there and say that, but no, I mean, they're beating Oklahoma State at halftime. They're in every single game. They've had some tough ones up. The SMU game obviously is what it is, but this is by no means a team where you'd say, they're 2-4, they're maybe not the tops in the league. And I think our guys understand that, and that's why even knowing as a coach, in the first 6 games, you're sitting there looking at some of the roads you have to go on, and some of the maybe historic names that you had to play, and you did think, okay, we got to do some different things in camp so that we can be at our best earlier in the season. Where last year we were a little bit more backloaded, and we said, okay, now we can train ourselves through a lot of this camp and make sure that we got to be able to play our best ball. At the end of the year, we have a chance in those first few games, to gain some momentum and things like that. So I don't know that it's any difference. We didn't ever talk to the team about anything different, whether it's front loaded or back loaded. Maybe how we approach camp was a slight bit different towards the end of camp, but really, from the whole time, we said no matter what, you got to play your best ball at the end of the year. And how do you do that? You consistently continue to build upon what you're doing.
Aside from the momentum factor that came with the points off turnovers, is there something on offense that you guys, a game plan you like to use when you get a turnover, maybe a good field position?
Take a shot, right? No, you play video games, that's what you do, right? You take a shot, right? As soon as you get a turnover, take a shot. But no, I think that you have some ideas, you have some concepts to what you want to do, but I think you still got to have a feel on the flow of the game. And so there's some different situations and different things. I mean, regardless of where you get the football at, what the momentum of the game's like, what the score's like, really, what are they giving you? Because a lot of times is that philosophy of, hey, as soon as you get a turnover, man, let's be aggressive and let's go. Well, the defense thinks about that too. So in a lot of ways, they might play a bit different. So I think that whatever your philosophy is, when it goes into a game and whatever the situation is, you got to have to be able to adjust and adapt your plan. And I think we had to do that this past week, and that's what I mean by the thing I'm the most proud of is our ability to handle this. Because I don't just mean as a team, I mean as a coaching staff too. When we get those penalties, you talk about can be frustrating. When we get a turnover or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you got 1st and 15, that's 1st and 20, and as an offense you can lose your mind a little bit. And they were put behind the 8 ball because of ourselves, but still found a way to continue to move the football and put us in situations where we could keep control of the ball and keep the momentum of the game.
I know you don't care about the rankings that much, but being a top 25 team now, do you talk to your team about having a target on your back? You're going to get every team's best shot, especially when you have some guys that are, or some teams that are, right around 500 coming at you?
We'll bring it up today. I think we've said that maybe a little bit last week, but I don't know that it means a whole lot different if you kind of keep yourself in the same philosophy of what you've kind of preached from the time you start camp. When things go awry and maybe you don't have a good first part of the season, I think you got to really start working some different things mentally on how to keep them and how to keep the energy. You know, where we're sitting right now, you know, it's kind of fallen a bit in the line of that plan to say, hey, no matter what, you got to play your best ball at the end of the year. How do you do that? You have consistency. So I don't know that you would change, but that's sometimes that elephant in the room that you got to be able to address, you know, so that we're not just wondering, you know, what's going through these guys' head.
You've talked before about keeping guys invested, maybe even younger guys especially who don't have as much chance to play. Are you using special teams for that this season, especially kickoff coverage?
No, we always try. We're not. It's not a half. Special teams is not a halfway house for those guys who can't play on offense and defense. But it is a bit of an opportunity for some guys that don't get as much playing time on offense and defense, you know, to show what they can do. And if you take a look at most of our special teams, there's going to be at least 3 or 4 starters on each one. I don't know that that's any different, whether it's kickoff or whether it's punt, whether it's punt block. It doesn't matter. That's the general concept that if you're a starter, you better be at least starting on at least one special team. But then your ability to mix in some of that. I think that's what I'm as excited about as we've gone through the first 6 games as anything, is not just that our special teams are playing well, but that you're seeing some young guys that are showing up and not just, you know, doing a decent job, but showing up, making plays on those special teams, which means there are opportunities to get more and more defensively and offensively. You know, there's a future there for them.
Do you use that, like, you know, Jaquan Shepard, Justin Harris, they play well on special teams? Does that earn them more time on defense?
You know, I think I said the other day, there was a wide receiver who, when we went Sunday on the kickoff drill, and they're a scout team wide out, and they're over there getting a drink, and I said, if you ever think you're going to catch a ball, you know, here at the University of Cincinnati before you run down on a kickoff, you're probably lost. So, you know, whether you are on the kickoff team or not, you better get over there and start working on it. I hope that it's a philosophy, it's a culture thing, that guys understand that. They don't, you know, look down upon the special team, and you try to put as much emphasis. I coach all the special teams along with Brian Mason, so we put an emphasis there. And we try to reward them guys and celebrate it. But, you know, it shows, let's just say that. It shows definitely. And I talk about it on Sundays too. I say I always put on a kickoff and a kickoff return from another team and say, okay, what is their philosophy? How do they really play? What is their attitude about not just offense and defense, but special teams? Will tell you a lot about what kind of program you're playing.
Was Tavion's absence due to injury or was something else going on?
No, he had missed a few things, and we're getting him a little bit healthy, both physically and academically and some things. He's doing a great job academically, but we're just kind of holding on, and you know, it looks like he's probably a redshirt guy.
Okay.
And so right now that he's going to be a redshirt guy, we don't have to use him and put him in there. It makes it a little bit easier on us to not all of a sudden throw a guy in there at the last minute, you know, because you can get in those situations in a game, you know, and I'm not saying we would make a mistake, but all of a sudden the guy ends up in the game, and now we're in a really tough situation. So we're just kind of doing this more for him.
Okay.
And a lot of the things that we're trying to do is just get all the things straight and right, and if we have a chance and we can redshirt.
Okay. So did he respond well from where he was in August?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's where right now he's doing a good job with us. Hey, this is how we're going to go about the redshirt. Here's how we're going to be able to use you. Here's what we're going to do. And, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy on anybody, but he's done a good job.
You're halfway through the season, 5-1, and you learn a lot each week about your team. What would you say is the greatest change you've seen for this year's team through 6?
Right now, I think it's the amount of people that we're playing. I think that that's why we have a better chance at the end of the year. At the end of the year last year, obviously we were playing really well, but those last 2 games, you know, we didn't have a Michael Warren, we didn't have a Fur. There was a lot of guys that, you know, just the amount of play and the things that we had done that, you know, we were beat up and wore out. You know, we've had some more injuries this year in camp and in the first weeks than I think we've had in the first 2 years I was here. I mean, we're talking season-ending injuries. We've had more of those situations. I think there's 7 of them right now. I don't know if we've had 7 in the first 2 years, but what I think we are is we're a healthier football team. I mean, you know, Mike Warren hasn't run the ball over 30 times in one game. We've played an average of 22 guys on defense. You know, offensive line is, you know, pretty much intact. We don't have as many guys playing there, but wideouts, there's a lot of guys playing. Tight ends, there's a ton of guys playing. That's where the excited about where you're going. Young guys showing up on special teams, the Trey Tuckers of the world, that all of a sudden they're going to find themselves, some more opportunities. That's when you start to say, you know what, this is not just because you're 5-1, but a lot of things going in the right direction.
Is it kind of just seeing your team grow and mature right in front of your eyes throughout the year?
It always is, and be able to handle a lot of different things. I think that we grow on the football field, everybody does. It's, we got to continue to grow within the locker room because, there's no greater, nothing greater to your program than really the energy and momentum that you guys have. And it's hard. I try to talk to those guys about 90% of college football is in this realm. There's 5% that are maybe off the charts in the upper end, and probably 5% that are in the lower end. But everybody else, there's a 90%. And what's going on within your locker room and energy and momentum and focus is why you see so much difference in those 90% year in and year out. And it's not easy, but I think that's where the growth, especially throughout a season, is more important than anything.
What is what makes you different about getting more out of your players in that 90% range? How's your process?
It's called a coaching staff. It really is. It's we all get tied up into the X's and O's, but as we reminded ourselves this morning, that our X's and O's are going to be fine. It's really what do those guys within your units, what do they see, what do they believe, what do they feel, and I think that's where you've got to continue to make sure it's about them. It's about getting the most out of them, as opposed to what we do schematically, offensively, and defensively, and special teams. And I would say the greatest thing that, for us to play above our talent levels, what a big part of our program, it takes a relationship in those unit rooms with the coaches. They're the ones that bring out the best in those guys. And I don't mean just teaching them how to tackle, and teaching them how to throw and catch, but teaching them how to handle all the things that are going to happen within a game, within college. That's how you continue to grow.
You mentioned Trey Tucker. When you look at the tape, is he as close to breaking one on tape as it appears on TV?
He is, and it's not just his kickoff return stuff. He made some really big play on the punt team too. We had a deep kick, and was Morrison in the middle of the field, and he was the field side gunner against a really good return guy. And so things like that I can say that, well, that's coaching, right? You guys work with him a lot with those tackle drills. No, he's a wideout, and I don't think we've done tackle drills with the wideouts very often, but I think he's got 2 or so tackles on punt, and maybe 2 or 3 tackles on the kickoff. So it's confidence, not just for himself, but also us to continue to put him in those situations, give him as many opportunities to put his hands on the football as we can.
Did you see that stuff when you were recruiting him? Because he had the reputation as speed guy. Those guys aren't often looked at as great football players.
It's hard. You believe, you think so. I'm not going to tell you why I really fell in love with him. It wasn't the 10-4 that he posted in the one of the meets his senior year. It wasn't his ability to win 3 events in the state tournament. They say he's like a focused. Might have to do with his ability to wrestle, I think, early on in his career. His 2 cousins and best friends were phenomenal wrestlers that both went to Ohio State. I said, if he's been around those guys and he's hung around those guys, and he's not just a trap kid. There's something else in there, and we're seeing it now.
I know you're worried about what happens on the field with Tulsa, but just they're celebrating the 12-0 Sugar Bowl team this weekend. Coach Hudson, get back a lot of those guys. What do you know about that team? And is it cool for you to have one of the best teams come back during one of your games?
Yeah, it's so hard during a game week. I mean, we won't know what's going on, but I said the other day that I don't know a whole bunch about their season in 2009. I'm not very good at following any college football team during the season. I actually don't like to watch college football because I just think about how to stop them and what they're doing, and my mind just races. So the only thing I remember is we ended the season, because in the Big Ten you ended at Thanksgiving, and we got to sit around and watch that last game of the 2009 regular season when they played at Pitt, and which is obviously everybody knows about that game. And I watched and watched and watched that entire game and realized, what people are saying is, hey, there's another team in this state that might be better than anybody. It was the first time I actually, being arrogant enough to be someplace else, realized, wow, those guys are really good. So that's the only real memory that I have of the 2009 season. That's the only memory I have probably of any other team from 2009 on.
Would you have benched Tony Pike in the first half?
I would have benched him earlier.
Bo's got sound for today.
Bench him.
Any other questions?
Can you remember a weirder pick six than the B-right block to Perry?
We've been working with some of that volleyballs if you haven't seen us out there in practice.
Jordan
It's usually on
Thompson
pump blocks, but it looked like it was a nice set on a volleyball court. No, I actually thought it had to hit him in the helmet or something to go that far backwards, but I just want to make sure Perry gives recognition because he really didn't have to do much. And it just reminds us that there's a lot of other things that go into just plays that are made, whether it's down the field, whether it's interceptions, whether it's fumble recoveries. But ultimately, when you have those opportunities, you got to make them, and that's why the game looks a little more lopsided than it really was. You guys watched, it was back and forth and a lot of momentum. Not that we lost the lead, but that was a huge play at that time.
Coach, you're in year 3, 5-1. Looking at this season, looking at the state of the program, do you feel like you're right where you expected to be, or are you further along than you expected?
You just said we're in week 6. I got no other focus and other than week 6. I haven't thought one bit about where we are as a program or as a team. I look at 6 weeks in, this is the 7th week, whatever it is that's going on within our locker room, I can tell you this, you can ask me next week because we'll be on a bye, and you can ask the same question, and I probably will have no idea of anything other than what's going on at that time, and most importantly with our kids. So I feel like we're in a good place and going in a great direction in our locker room. And I think, that's the most critical time is during a season because there's no greater adversity, and it's not just wins and losses, okay, than what happens during a season. And I mean that by playing time, I mean that by recognition. You heard Nick Saban say it, right? Some guys out here, rat poison or whatever, I don't know, I don't watch a whole lot, but the most difficult thing and continue to progress your football program is where the minds of your kids. And the hardest time is during the season. The easiest time is in the off season. The easiest time is in spring football because they're not worried about the playing time. They're not worried about the stats. And this is what's difficult. And where we're going, where we're headed, and what we've got going on in that locker room is where we need to be.
You seem to have a special bond with Mike Warren. Can you describe your relationship with him, and what has he meant to that locker room?
He's huge. I mean, he's an energy guy, and do I have a special? I don't know. I like hanging around him because people that provide energy you want to be around. Whether he's carried the ball 35 times or not, he's a guy that provides energy. Provides energy on the practice field. He provides energy in the locker room. He provides energy during a game. He's a guy from that first class. So I think it is a little bit easier to have some of those relationships, deeper relationships, because you've spent time with people's families. You know a little bit more about how they, where they're from and what they've done. And it is in my, for what I do, I think it is more difficult to be as tight with a relationship with a guy if you've never been in their home. And I don't mean that against any of the guys that we did recruit. I just means we got to work a lot harder at knowing exactly what they've come from, how they've been raised, what makes them tick. Sometimes it's harder. It takes longer to get to know them. If you've never been in their home.
You spoke about keeping kids' mindsets focused on the field and the game as the season kind of goes along. Now with 6 weeks left and coaching carousel as it is every year, as some of these jobs start to open up, how will you keep those kids focused when your name inevitably becomes tied to some of these positions that open up?
We don't, I avoid it. I don't know, what these guys know or think or see. I think it's all about the actions you have towards them, and hopefully the great thing about being here for 2 years and going into this is the 3rd year is you build up some trust that, they believe in what it is that you do. Maybe not what you have to say, but it's how you go about your business. And, nothing that you're going to say to them, whether they're ranked in the nation or there's other talk outside, whether you're getting fired or there's other opportunities. Nothing that you say is going to sink in unless they believe in you as a person. And the best way is not to have to say a whole lot, but it's probably the way you treat them, it's your actions, it's your consistency on a daily basis. And, you know, those are the things, like you said, that you preach to your kids, and you got to do the same, whether you're an assistant coach, you know, or the head coach.
How do you guys answer that question on the recruiting trail if a parent might ask about you or Marcus or, you know, another person on
I
staff?
think it's the greatest thing that can happen. You know, people would use it against you, like, oh, these guys might leave. You know what? You better hope that we have an opportunity to leave. Because if we don't have an opportunity to leave, it means we're not winning. And you don't want to come to a program that's not winning. There's no energy, there's no momentum in a program. It's the same thing. You got to have trust and belief. And in recruiting, it's hard because you don't know them. But the first thing I say is, darn right. If we aren't winning and we don't have an opportunity and people aren't talking about us, I'd be careful coming to a program that doesn't have energy and momentum. Now, with that being said, you know, I want you to know what's important to me. But I hope every year, some way, somehow, that we're being talked about, whether it's Coach Freeman, Coach Denbrock, Coach Brady, who does an unbelievable job. They better be talked about every single year because, wow, people are taking notice to what it is you're doing as a football program and a team.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.